The notification lit up my laptop screen at 2:47 a.m. while I was finishing quarterly projections for the hospital system I'd helped design. Marcus's AirPods Pro connected. I stared at the message, confused. Marcus was supposedly in Chicago for a medical conference. Our AirPods were paired to both our devices for convenience, something we'd set up years ago when he kept losing his charging case. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. I almost dismissed it. Almost closed my laptop and gone back to bed, but something made me tap the audio settings, curiosity mixing with the exhaustion of another 16-hour workday. What I heard made my blood freeze. God, I can't believe how easy this is. Marcus's voice, thick with wine and something else. Satisfaction. Arrogance. She's too dumb to notice. Working all those hours, thinks she's so important with her little hospital consulting job. A woman's laugh. Bright. Careless. Young. Little job? Doesn't she make like 6 figures? Try 7. He laughed, that deep rumble I used to find comforting. The irony is she's funding our entire lifestyle while I tell everyone I'm the breadwinner. My colleagues at the practice think I'm some kind of genius for landing such a low-maintenance wife. My hands had gone numb. The spreadsheet blurred before me, those carefully calculated numbers suddenly meaningless. Low maintenance? The woman again. I forced myself to breathe, to listen. More like oblivious. How long has this been going on? Which this? Marcus's voice moved closer to the microphone. Us? 6 months. The others before you? Let's just say I've been creatively interpreting business trips since year 2 of our marriage. 7 years. We'd been married for 9 years. And she never suspected. The woman sounded almost impressed. Elena's brilliant with systems and data, absolutely useless with people. His voice carried the weight of rehearsed explanation. She can design a hospital's entire operational flow, but can't read a room to save her life. Probably on the spectrum or something. Makes her perfect, really. She works, I reap the benefits, and she's too socially awkward to notice I'm barely home. The woman giggled. I recognized that sound now, the particular pitch of it. Christina, the new dental hygienist at his practice. 26 years old. I'd met her at the office Christmas party 3 months ago, had watched Marcus introduce her with the same proud smile he used when showing off new equipment. I sat perfectly still in my home office, in the house I'd bought before we married, listening to my husband destroy me with words I'd never been meant to hear. Show me that picture again, Christina said. The one from your conference. Which one? Oh, you mean... Papers rustled. This one? That's her trying to network at some hospital administration thing. Look at that outfit. I remembered that picture. The Healthcare Innovation Summit in Boston last spring. I'd been presenting on emergency room efficiency models I'd developed. Models that had been implemented in 14 hospitals across 3 states. Is that a pantsuit from like 2010? Christina's voice dripped with disdain. She has no sense of style, no sense of anything outside her spreadsheets and flowcharts. Marcus sounded almost bored now. I keep telling people my wife is a hospital administrator to make it sound impressive. Reality is she's basically a data nerd who gets paid to make charts. Data nerd. I'd spent 12 years building healthcare systems that saved lives. I'd restructured emergency departments to reduce patient wait times by 40%. I'd designed intake protocols that caught life-threatening conditions hours earlier than standard procedures. Last year alone, my work had been directly credited with improving outcomes for over 50,000 patients. But to Marcus, I made charts. So when are you going to leave her? Christina asked. The question was casual, like asking about dinner plans. Leave her? Marcus laughed. Why would I do that? She pays the mortgage, the car payments, everything. Plus, divorced doctors look bad for business. Family values and all that. No, this works perfectly. She's so wrapped up in her work, she doesn't notice I'm checked out. I get financial security, professional respectability, and freedom to do whatever I want. Whatever? Christina's voice turned playful. Whoever, he corrected. You're not the first, sweetheart. Won't be the last. But you're definitely the most fun. My phone was in my hand before I consciously reached for it. I started recording the audio, my fingers moving on autopilot while my mind tried to process the casual cruelty of his words. What about kids? Christina asked. Doesn't she want them? Oh, she brings it up every few months. I keep stalling. Marcus's voice moved further away. I tell her we should wait until her career is more stable, until we have more saved. Whatever excuse works. Truth is, I'm not tying myself down with her kids. Can you imagine? She'd probably try to optimize their feeding schedule with a spreadsheet. I had wanted children, desperately, for years. Every time I brought it up, Marcus had reasonable objections. My work hours were too long. We should wait until his practice was more established. We needed to build more savings first. I'd believed him. I'd worked harder, saved more, restructured my consulting business to allow for flexible hours, all preparing for a family he'd never intended to give me. That's actually kind of sad, Christina said, but she didn't sound sad at all. It's practical, Marcus corrected. Look, she's fine. She's useful. But she's not someone you build a life with. She's someone you use while you figure out what you really want. And right now, what I want is another glass of this excellent wine and you in that dress. Or preferably out of it. The audio shifted. Music in the background. Movement. I closed my eyes and stopped recording. 43 minutes of documentation saved to 3 separate cloud accounts before I even processed what I was doing. Professional Elena, the one who'd built a consulting empire on efficiency and strategic planning, was taking over. Personal Elena, the one whose heart was currently shattering into pieces, would have to wait. I opened a new document and began typing. Time-stamped notes. Every detail. Every word I could remember. Then I opened my secure files, the ones password-protected behind 3 layers of encryption. The documents I'd created years ago when I bought this house, when I structured my business, when I'd insisted on a prenuptial agreement that Marcus had signed without even reading because he'd been so confident I'd never earn more than him. The prenup that protected every asset I'd owned before marriage and every dollar I'd earned during it. My consulting business, Healthcare Systems Optimization, operated under my maiden name, Elena Volkov. Marcus had never paid attention to the details, had never noticed that the paychecks deposited into our joint account came from a personal account, not a company payroll, had never asked why a hospital administrator traveled so frequently, or took calls from CEOs at odd hours. I pulled up my business accounts, the company I'd built while he'd been too busy with his practice to notice. $7 million in annual revenue. Contracts with 23 hospitals and 3 insurance companies. A reputation in healthcare administration that had led to speaking engagements at conferences he'd thought were networking events for middle management. My personal account, the one I'd maintained separately, carefully documenting every deposit. 12 years of savings and investments. Money I'd earned. Money that had funded our life while he'd spent his income on God knew what. I began pulling records. Every mortgage payment I'd made, every car payment, insurance, property taxes, utilities, groceries. I'd paid for everything, maintaining detailed records because that's what I did. Documentation, systems, evidence. Marcus's contributions to our household over 9 years of marriage, approximately $11,000. Mostly in the first year, before his practice got busy. My contributions, just over $2 million. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, like this video, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The house was mine. The cars were in my name. Even his precious home office, the one he'd insisted on customizing with expensive furniture and equipment, had been paid for entirely by me. I looked at the clock. 3:47 a.m. Marcus's flight from Chicago wasn't until tomorrow afternoon. Except he wasn't in Chicago. The hotel he'd told me he was staying at. The conference he was supposedly attending. I pulled up my browser and checked. The Medical Futures Conference he'd mentioned. It had been last week. Different city. This week in Chicago. A dental supply expo. No dental conference. No reason for a cosmetic dentist to be there, except the reason currently giggling in his hotel room. I opened my email and started a new message to Jennifer Oakes, the attorney who'd handled my prenup and business formation. Subject line: Urgent. Marriage dissolution strategy session required. I attached the audio file and my financial documentation, then scheduled the email to send at 8 a.m. Professional hours. No need to wake her at 4 in the morning with my imploding marriage. Then I opened my calendar. I had a presentation scheduled for Thursday at Memorial Hospital, a 3-hour drive away. They were implementing the new emergency department protocol I'd designed. I'd been dreading the timing. Would have to leave Wednesday afternoon to make the morning meeting. Now I circled it on my calendar in red. Wednesday, 2 days from now, 2 days to prepare. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Morning, babe. Conference is running late today. Might not be able to call tonight. Love you. I stared at the message. The casual lie. The ease of it. How many times had he done this? How many late conferences and emergency dental procedures and guys' nights had been cover for whatever this was? I typed back. No problem. Work is crazy here too. Safe travels. Then I got up, walked to our bedroom, and stood in the doorway. Our bed. Except it wasn't ours anymore, was it? It was mine. My house. My bed. My life he'd been parasiting off while calling me too dumb to notice. I didn't cry. That surprised me. I'd imagined if something like this ever happened, I'd fall apart. Instead, I felt cold. Calculating. The same way I felt when designing a new hospital system, identifying inefficiencies, planning solutions. Marcus was an inefficiency, a drain on resources that produced no value. He needed to be eliminated from the system. I went back to my office and started a new spreadsheet. This one wasn't for hospitals. This one was for my life. Column A. Assets. My house, my car, my business, my retirement accounts, my investment portfolio, my savings, everything I'd built, earned, or owned before Marcus had entered my life. Column B, shared assets. This column was remarkably short. A joint checking account with $3,400 in it. A vacation timeshare we'd bought 2 years ago that I'd paid for entirely, but put in both names because Marcus had insisted it would look better for taxes. Column C, his assets. His car, leased in his name but paid for by me. His dental practice, which according to my records operated at barely break-even most months. His personal checking account, which I had access to as part of our joint finances. I logged into his account. Something I rarely did, had never needed to do because Marcus handled his own business expenses, and I paid for everything else. The balance was $847. For a dentist who supposedly pulled in $300,000 a year. Where was all his money going? I pulled up the transaction history. 6 months of statements. The pattern emerged quickly. Restaurants I'd never been to. Hotels. A charge to a jewelry store for $3,200 last month. I'd never received jewelry. Payments to Venmo and PayPal, marked personal. I downloaded everything. 6 months of statements. 3 clicks, all saved to my secure drive. Then I found it. A recurring payment. Every month for the past 18 months. $12,500 to Westview Luxury Apartments. I opened a new browser tab and searched the address. High-end complex downtown. The kind with doormen and rooftop pools. Studio apartments starting at $2,000 to $400 a month. Marcus had a second apartment. The coldness I'd been feeling solidified into something sharp, focused. He hadn't just been cheating. He'd been systematic about it, professional. He'd set up an entire separate life while I'd been working 60-hour weeks to support us. I pulled up the apartment complex's website. They had virtual tours. I clicked through, studying the layouts. Small, but luxurious. Perfect for someone who needed a place to take women while maintaining a respectable married image. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Marcus. "Miss you. Can't wait to get home and hear about your week." I responded, "Miss you too. Lots to tell you." That was true. I had so much to tell him. Just not what he was expecting. The sun was rising. I'd been up all night, but I didn't feel tired. I felt focused, clear. Like the moment before a major presentation when all the preparation clicks into place and you know exactly what you're going to say. I made coffee and returned to my office. Time to make a plan. Jennifer would help with the legal strategy. But I needed more than just a clean divorce. Marcus had called me too dumb to notice. Had built an entire narrative around my supposed social obliviousness while stealing my money and my life. I wanted him to understand exactly how wrong he'd been. My consulting business had given me connections across the medical community. I knew administrators, board members, department heads. I knew which hospitals had the best reputations, which practices were struggling, which dental groups were expanding. I also knew which ones had strict ethics policies, which ones took patient trust seriously, which ones wouldn't tolerate a provider who was systematically lying to his spouse and using family money to fund affairs. Marcus's dental practice had privileges at 3 hospitals. He did cosmetic procedures for high-end clients, many of whom he'd met through my professional connections. My recommendations to friends and colleagues. My credibility in the healthcare community lending him legitimacy. I opened my professional contact database. 12 years of networking. Over 3,000 contacts, carefully maintained with notes about connections, specialties, personalities. A web of relationships I'd built while Marcus had been calling me socially awkward. I started a new list. Key contacts. People who would care about what I was about to tell them. But first, I needed to secure my position. Make sure every asset was protected, every dollar accounted for, every piece of evidence documented. I pulled up my mortgage account. The house was worth $1.2 million now. I'd bought it for $680,000 12 years ago. All my money, my down payment, my credit, my responsibility. Marcus's name wasn't on the deed, had never been on the deed, because I'd bought it before we married, and the prenup kept it separate. The cars. My Tesla, purchased 2 years ago. His BMW, leased 18 months ago. Both registered in my name because my credit was better. Both paid for entirely by me. I called my bank as soon as they opened at 8 a.m., requesting to freeze our joint account and transfer my contributions to a separate account. The representative was sympathetic when I explained my situation. Within an hour, I had a new personal account with $3,230, leaving Marcus exactly $170 in the joint account. His last contribution, deposited 6 months ago. Jennifer called at 8:47 a.m. "Elena, I just read your email. Are you okay?" "I'm fine." I was surprised to realize it was true. "I need to move quickly. He gets back tomorrow afternoon." "I've cleared my morning. Can you come to my office at 10? "I'll be there at 9:30. I showered and dressed carefully. Not the comfortable, practical clothes Marcus had mocked. Instead, I chose my presentation outfit, the one I wore when consulting with hospital boards and executives. Tailored navy suit, silk blouse, heels that added 3 inches to my 5'6" frame, my good jewelry, the pieces I'd bought myself to celebrate business milestones. I looked at myself in the mirror. This was who I actually was, not the oblivious, socially awkward data nerd Marcus had described. I was a successful business owner, a healthcare innovator, a woman who'd built something meaningful while he'd been coasting on my money and my connections. Jennifer's office was downtown, occupying the corner suite of a building I'd helped redesign during a hospital merger 3 years ago. She stood when I entered, concern evident on her face. "Elena, I'm so sorry you're going through this." I sat down, pulling out my laptop. "Don't be sorry yet. Wait until you see what I have." We spent the next 3 hours going through everything: the audio recording, the financial documentation, the apartment, the pattern of lies. Jennifer took notes, her expression growing more serious with each revelation. "This is airtight," she finally said. "The prenup is solid. Everything you've earned is protected. With this level of documentation, we can have him out of the house by end of week." "I don't want him out by end of week." I closed my laptop. "I want him to understand what he lost, what he threw away. I want everyone who matters to know exactly who he is." Jennifer leaned back in her chair, studying me. "What exactly are you proposing?" "Marcus thinks I'm too dumb to notice his affair, too socially oblivious to understand what's happening around me." I met her eyes. "I want to prove him wrong in the most public way possible. I want him to lose everything he thinks makes him successful: his reputation, his practice privileges, his comfortable life, all of it." "That's ambitious." "I've spent 9 years building a man up while he's been tearing me down. Time to reverse that process." Jennifer smiled slowly. "I'm listening." I opened my laptop again, pulling up the presentation I'd been working on. "Thursday, I'm presenting at Memorial Hospital. Their board is implementing my new ER protocol. Marcus has privileges there. Does cosmetic dentistry for their executives and major donors. And I'm going to tell them exactly what kind of man has access to their facilities. What kind of character their patients are trusting. Not directly, of course. But I know how these things work. I know how information flows through a hospital system." Jennifer was taking notes now. "What else?" "Marcus's practice operates on referrals. 70% of his patients come through connections I've made in the healthcare community. My colleagues, people I've worked with, people who trust my judgment. You're going to cut off his referral pipeline. I'm going to let them know who they've been recommending. Let them make their own decisions about whether they want to continue that association." "And the apartment?" I smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. "Wednesday afternoon, I'm going to visit Westview Luxury Apartments. I'm going to explain to management that my husband has been maintaining a lease there without my knowledge, using marital funds. I'm going to request a copy of their security footage for the past 6 months and inform them that I'll be filing for divorce and they should expect subpoenas." "They won't give you footage?" "No, but they'll alert Marcus that his wife knows about the apartment, that his carefully maintained secret is out." "You want him to panic." "I want him to know what it feels like when everything you thought was secure suddenly isn't. When the person you underestimated turns out to be 3 steps ahead of you." Jennifer was quiet for a moment. "This isn't just about the divorce, is it?" "No." I thought about those hours of listening to Marcus mock me. Call me oblivious. Reduce 12 years of my career to making charts. This is about making sure he understands exactly what he lost. Not just me. Everything I brought to his life. Every connection. Every opportunity. Every dollar that made his comfortable existence possible. Some people would call this vindictive. Some people would call systematic lying, financial manipulation, and serial infidelity during a marriage vindictive. I met her eyes. "I call this consequences." Jennifer nodded slowly. "All right, let's build your strategy. But Elena, we need to be careful. Everything has to be legal, Documented and defensible. We can ruin him, but we can't give him ammunition to fight back. Everything I do is documented and defensible. It's who I am. We spent another 2 hours mapping out the approach. Jennifer would file the initial divorce papers Wednesday morning, serving Marcus the moment he landed from his Chicago conference. By then, I'd have already spoken to the apartment complex and set everything else in motion. The divorce itself would be straightforward. The prenup was clear. My assets were my assets. The house was mine. The cars were mine. My business was mine. Marcus would leave with exactly what he'd brought to the marriage: his dental practice, his personal debt, and nothing else. But that wasn't enough. I wanted him to lose more than just access to my money. I wanted him to lose the life he'd built on my credibility. I left Jennifer's office at 1 p.m. and went to lunch at a restaurant I knew well. The kind of place where healthcare executives gathered, where deals were made over expensive wine and tasting menus. I'd been here dozens of times, always for business, always networking. Today was no different. Except today, I was networking with a purpose. Dr. Patricia Henshaw was at her usual corner table. Chief of surgery at Memorial, board member at 3 other hospitals, and someone whose recommendation could make or break a medical career. We'd worked together on 2 hospital redesign projects. She trusted my judgment. "Elena," she stood to greet me. "This is a pleasant surprise. Join me?" I sat down, ordered sparingly. "Patricia, I'm glad I ran into you. I wanted to talk to you about Thursday's presentation. I'm looking forward to it. The emergency department metrics you've shown us are impressive." "Thank you. There's something else I need to discuss." I chose my words carefully. It's about professional ethics and how we maintain trust in our healthcare community. Patricia's expression grew serious. "Go on. How much do you value integrity in the providers who have privileges at Memorial?" "It's foundational." "Why?" I told her. "Not everything. Just enough. About discovering my husband's systematic infidelity. About the financial manipulation. About the apartment funded by money he'd claimed was for practice expenses. About the pattern of lies that suggested a character fundamentally at odds with the trust patients placed in healthcare providers." "I don't want to influence your decisions," I finished. "But I thought you should know, before I present on Thursday, before we continue our professional relationship. Full transparency." Patricia was quiet for a long moment. "Your husband is Marcus Chen, the cosmetic dentist." "Yes." "He has privileges at Memorial. He's been recommended by several board members." "I know. Many of those recommendations came through me." Patricia nodded slowly. "Thank you for telling me. This conversation will remain confidential, but I appreciate your honesty. Integrity matters, Elena, in every aspect of our professional lives." We finished lunch discussing the Thursday presentation. Patricia didn't mention Marcus again. She didn't need to. I knew how these things worked. By tomorrow, the right people would be asking the right questions. Marcus's professional reputation would start to crack, slowly at first, then faster as people reassessed their trust. I spent Monday afternoon similar conversations. Lunch with Dr. Robert Keene, Chief Medical Officer at Riverside Hospital, where Marcus also had privileges. Coffee with Amanda Cho, who ran the dental referral service that sent Marcus half his high-end clients. Drinks with 3 different hospital administrators I'd worked with over the years. I never explicitly said Marcus shouldn't have privileges, never directly recommended people stop referring patients. I simply told them what had happened. Let them know I'd discovered systematic dishonesty in my personal life that raised questions about professional character. Suggested they might want to review their own policies about provider ethics. By Monday evening, I'd had 8 conversations. 8 seeds planted that would grow into a forest of consequences. Tuesday morning, Jennifer called. "The divorce papers are ready. We'll serve him tomorrow at 3 p.m. when he lands. Are you sure you want to be there? Absolutely sure. I want to see his face. Elena, one more thing. Are you prepared for him to fight back? To try to salvage this? I thought about the audio recording. His casual cruelty. The way he'd reduced me to a useful idiot who funded his real life. He won't fight. He'll realize he has nothing to fight with. Everything he thinks he has access to, I control. And by tomorrow afternoon, he'll know it. Tuesday was spent preparing. I moved valuable items from shared spaces into my locked office. Changed passwords on all streaming services, subscriptions, utilities. Canceled his credit cards where I was the primary holder. Transferred every dollar of my money into accounts he couldn't access. By Tuesday evening, Marcus existed in my house but had access to almost nothing in it. The cable wouldn't work. The Netflix account would reject his login. His credit cards would decline. Even the Wi-Fi password had been changed. Small things. Petty, maybe. But I wanted him to feel the ground shifting under his feet. To understand that everything he took for granted was actually built on foundations he'd never appreciated. Tuesday night, I barely slept. Not from anxiety, from anticipation. Tomorrow, everything would change. Wednesday morning dawned clear and cold. Perfect weather for destruction. I dressed carefully again. Professional armor. Then I drove to Westview Luxury Apartments, arriving at 10 a.m. when I knew their management office would be open, but not busy. The lobby was exactly as expensive as the website had suggested. Marble floors, modern art. A doorman who looked at me with polite inquiry. I'm here to see the property manager. My husband has been maintaining a lease here without my knowledge. I need to discuss the legal implications. The doorman's expression flickered. 1 moment, please. 15 minutes later, I was in an office with Teresa Montero, the property manager. She was professional, careful, clearly worried about legal exposure. Mrs. Chen, I understand your concerns, but we can't discuss a tenant's lease with someone not on the agreement. I'm not asking you to discuss it. I'm informing you that my attorney will be subpoenaing all records related to apartment 847, including security footage, lease agreements, and payment history. I'm filing for divorce today. That apartment has been funded with marital assets without my knowledge or consent. I wanted to give you advance notice so you could prepare your records. Teresa's face went pale. I see. I also wanted to ask if your company has policies about fraud, about tenants who misrepresent their marital status to secure leases, about activities in your apartments that might violate community standards. We take such matters very seriously. I'm glad to hear it. My attorney will be in touch by end of week. In the meantime, I'd recommend you alert Dr. Chen that his spouse is aware of his lease. Professional courtesy. I left the building knowing exactly what would happen next. Teresa would immediately call Marcus's emergency contact number. She'd leave a message about a serious matter regarding your lease. Marcus would panic, would realize his secret was out, would start spiraling before he even got served with divorce papers. I was waiting at baggage claim when Marcus's flight landed at 2:47 p.m. He didn't see me at first, too busy checking his phone with increasing agitation. 3 missed calls from the apartment complex, 2 voicemails, 7 texts from Christina asking why he wasn't responding. His face when he finally looked up and saw me was worth everything. Elena, what are you doing here? He tried to smile, but it came out wrong, strained. Surprise. I kept my voice light. Thought I'd pick up my husband from his conference. How was Chicago? Something flickered in his eyes. Calculation. It was good, productive. You didn't have to drive all the way out here. I wanted to. I gestured toward the exit. Car's this way. He followed, still checking his phone. I need to make a quick call. Work stuff. Of course. But first, there's someone who needs to speak with you. Jennifer stepped out from behind a pillar, professional and composed in her gray suit. Marcus froze. Dr. Marcus Chen? She extended an envelope. "You've been served." I watched his face cycle through confusion, shock, and then something like fear as he opened the envelope. His eyes scanned the first page. Petition for dissolution of marriage. His hands started shaking on the second page, the one listing assets. All my assets. None of them his. "What is this?" His voice cracked. "Elena, what's going on?" "I'm divorcing you, Marcus, effective immediately." I kept my tone calm, almost clinical. "Per our prenuptial agreement, you have 72 hours to remove your personal belongings from my house. Jennifer has a list of what constitutes personal belongings. Spoiler alert, it's a very short list. You can't just..." He looked around wildly, as if searching for help in an airport baggage claim. "We need to talk about this. Whatever you think happened." "I don't think anything happened, Marcus." "I know." I pulled out my phone and played the audio. His voice filled the space between us. "She's too dumb to notice. Working all those hours, thinks she's so important with her little hospital consulting job." The color drained from his face. I let it play for 30 more seconds. Long enough for him to hear himself mock me. Long enough for him to realize exactly how much I knew. Then I stopped it. 43 minutes of recording, I said. Your AirPods connected to my laptop Friday night. I heard everything. The affair with Christina, the others before her, the apartment you've been funding with my money, all of it. Marcus opened his mouth, but no sound came out. You called me too dumb to notice. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. But I noticed everything, Marcus. Every lie. Every dollar you stole. Every moment you pretended to be something you're not. The only difference between us is that I was documenting while you were bragging. Elena, please, let me explain. There's nothing to explain. Jennifer has everything we need. Bank records showing I've paid for 97% of our life together. Documentation of the apartment you've been hiding. Records of your spending. And that audio recording of you describing exactly how you've been using me. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and I saw his face go even paler. A text from Teresa at Westview Apartments. Need to discuss your lease urgently. Your wife visited this morning. You went to the apartment? His voice was barely a whisper. I informed them their tenant had been committing fraud with marital assets. They're very interested in cooperating with my attorney's investigation. I gestured to Jennifer. She'll explain everything else. The timeline, the asset division, the fact that you're leaving this marriage with exactly what you brought to it, nothing. You can't do this. But his voice held no conviction. He was reading the papers now, really reading them, understanding what they meant. I already have. The house locks have been changed. Your access to all accounts has been revoked. Your credit cards, the ones I was paying for, have been canceled. Even the Wi-Fi password is different. Jennifer handed him a second envelope. This contains a list of your belongings and the storage unit where they'll be placed if not collected within 72 hours. It also includes documentation of Dr. Volkov's legal right to all marital property per your prenuptial agreement. Dr. Volkov? Marcus looked confused. My maiden name. The name on my business. Healthcare Systems Optimization. The company you thought was just a little consulting job. I smiled coldly. I'm the founder and CEO. 7 million in annual revenue. 23 hospital contracts. But you knew that, didn't you? You just pretended not to understand because it was easier to think of me as beneath you. The reality was settling over him now. I could see it in his eyes. The understanding that he'd been living in a house of cards and I'd just removed the foundation. What about my practice? His voice was small. What about it? It's yours. It's also the only thing you'll be leaving this marriage with. Well, that and your debt. Debt? The $87,000 you owe on student loans, credit cards, and that BMW lease. All in your name. All your responsibility. I paid our living expenses. I never touched your personal debt. Congratulations. It's all still yours. His phone kept buzzing. I could see the messages piling up. Christina. The apartment complex. Something from the hospital. There's one more thing, I said. I've had several conversations this week with colleagues in the healthcare community, hospital administrators, department chiefs, people who've been referring patients to your practice. His eyes went wide. You didn't. I didn't tell them not to work with you. I simply shared what happened in my personal life. Let them know I'd discovered systematic dishonesty from my spouse. They asked if you were that spouse. I confirmed. What they do with that information is their decision. Elena, you're destroying my career. No, Marcus. You destroyed your career the moment you decided to commit fraud and call your wife too dumb to notice. I'm just making sure people know who you really are. That's called transparency. You should try it sometime. Jennifer checked her watch. Dr. Chen, I need to remind you that you have 72 hours to collect your belongings. After that, Dr. Volkov has no legal obligation to maintain access to them. I'd suggest you start making arrangements. Marcus looked at me, and for the first time I saw real panic in his eyes. Where am I supposed to go? I don't know. Maybe the apartment you've been keeping? Oh, wait, I forgot to mention. Teresa from Westview called while you were on your flight. They're reviewing your lease for violations of their fraud policy. Something about misrepresenting your living situation. You might want to call them back. His phone rang. He looked at the screen, then at me. This is Memorial Hospital. You should probably take that. I turned to leave, then stopped. Oh, and Marcus? Christina has been texting you all afternoon. She seems worried. You might want to let her know that the free ride just ended. For both of you. I walked away, Jennifer beside me. Behind us, I could hear Marcus answering his phone, his voice desperate. Dr. Henshaw? Yes, I just landed. What's this about a review of my privileges? In the car, Jennifer looked at me with something like awe. That was brutal. That was necessary. I started the engine. He spent 9 years thinking I was too stupid to see what he was doing. Time he learned otherwise. What happens now? Now? I go back to my life. The one I built while he was busy mocking me. I pulled out of the parking garage. I have a presentation tomorrow at Memorial. I have contracts to fulfill. I have a business to run. Marcus was just a distraction. An expensive, lying distraction. And you're okay? I thought about it. Really thought about it. Was I okay? My marriage was over. My husband had betrayed me in every way possible. 9 years of my life had been built on his lies. But I was free. I'm better than okay, I said finally. I'm exactly who I've always been. Successful, competent, smart. The only difference is now I don't have someone actively working to make me doubt that. Jennifer nodded. For what it's worth, I think you handled this perfectly. Documented everything, protected your assets, and made sure he faces consequences. Most people would have just filed for divorce and walked away. Most people didn't hear their husband call them too dumb to notice an affair. I merged onto the highway. Most people didn't spend 9 years funding a lifestyle for someone who saw them as a useful idiot. My phone buzzed. A text from Dr. Patricia Henshaw. Elena, thank you for your honesty this week. The board has decided to suspend Dr. Chen's privileges pending an ethics review. Your presentation is still on for tomorrow. Looking forward to it. I showed Jennifer the message. Memorial already suspended him. Patricia doesn't tolerate integrity issues. She would have done her due diligence, talked to other board members, reviewed his history. Once she knew what to look for, I'm sure she found problems I didn't even know about. We drove in silence for a few minutes. Then Jennifer said, "Can I ask you something personal?" "Sure." "Are you angry? Hurt? I keep waiting for you to break down, but you're so controlled." I was hurt. Friday night, when I first heard that recording, I was devastated. I kept my eyes on the road. But then I started working, planning, documenting, and somewhere in that process, the hurt turned into something else. Clarity, maybe. I realized Marcus didn't break me. He revealed himself. There's a difference. That's a remarkably healthy perspective. I've spent 12 years solving complex problems for hospitals. This was just another problem. A husband who was a liability needed to be removed from the system. So I removed him. My phone rang. Marcus. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again. Again. 5 times in 2 minutes. Are you going to answer that? Jennifer asked. No. We have nothing to discuss. You're handling the divorce. He has his instructions. Anything he wants to say now is just noise. A text came through. Elena. Please, we need to talk. I can explain everything. Don't do this. I deleted it. Another text. Memorial suspended my privileges. Dr. Keene called from Riverside. They're reviewing me too. What did you tell them? I deleted that one too. A third text. I'm sorry. I was stupid. I said things I didn't mean. We can fix this, please. I blocked his number. Cold, Jennifer observed. Efficient, I corrected. Marcus had 9 years to be honest with me. 9 years to respect me. 9 years to be a real partner. He chose to spend that time lying and stealing instead. I'm not interested in his apologies now that he's facing consequences. We reached Jennifer's office. She gathered her briefcase. The divorce should be finalized in about 6 weeks, assuming he doesn't contest. Given the prenup and the evidence, I don't think he will. He has no grounds to fight and no money to hire an attorney. What about the apartment? We'll subpoena records as planned. If we find evidence of other women, other expenditures, it all goes into documentation. Even though the prenup protects you regardless, I want everything documented in case he tries to claim any kind of financial support later. He won't get anything, will he? Jennifer smiled grimly. Not a penny. He signed a prenup that explicitly waived any claim to your premarital assets or business income. He earned his own money from his practice. He's not entitled to yours, and California law is very clear on that when there's a valid prenuptial agreement. Good. I drove home. To my house, I reminded myself. It had always been my house. And found Marcus's car in the driveway. He'd beaten me here somehow. Had probably left the airport immediately after those phone calls and driven like a maniac. He was sitting on the front steps, head in his hands. He looked up when I pulled in, and I saw he'd been crying. Elena, please, let me in. Let's talk about this. I got out of my car, kept my distance. No. You're my wife. I'm your ex-wife as of about 3 hours ago. You were served. It's done. We're still married until the divorce is final. You can't just lock me out of our house. My house. Always was. Check the deed. Your name isn't on it. I walked toward the door. You have 72 hours to collect your belongings. I'd suggest you start with your office. Where am I supposed to stay? That's not my problem anymore. Maybe call Christina. I'm sure she'd love to help her boyfriend find accommodations. He stood up, tried to block my path. Elena, I know I screwed up. I said terrible things. But we can work through this. Move. Something in my voice made him step aside. I unlocked the door and went inside, starting to close it behind me. Please. His voice broke. I love you. I stopped. Looked at him. Really looked at him. This man I'd spent 9 years with. This man I'd supported, funded, believed in. This man who'd called me too dumb to notice his affairs. No, you don't. You loved what I provided. The house, the money, the connections, the stability. But you never loved me. If you had, you wouldn't have spent our marriage systematically destroying me behind my back while using my success to fund your real life. That's not true. It is true. I have 43 minutes of audio of you explaining exactly how you really feel about me. How you felt for years. That's your truth, Marcus. Own it. I closed the door, locked it, set the alarm. Through the window, I watched him stand there for several minutes before finally getting in his car and leaving. My phone buzzed. An email from Amanda Cho, the dental referral service coordinator. Elena, I wanted to reach out personally. After our conversation, I reviewed Dr. Chen's client history and found several concerning patterns. We're terminating our referral relationship with his practice. I'm sorry you're going through this, but thank you for bringing it to our attention. Another email. Dr. Robert Keene. Dr. Volkov, the Credentials Committee at Riverside has voted to suspend Dr. Chen's privileges pending investigation. Your integrity in bringing this matter to our attention is appreciated. The emails kept coming, one after another. Colleagues, hospital administrators, professional contacts. Each one confirming what I'd known would happen. Marcus's professional reputation was unraveling as quickly as his personal life. I poured a glass of wine, my wine from my collection, in my house, and sat in my office. The same office where I'd first heard that recording 5 days ago. 5 days. That's all it had taken to dismantle a 9-year marriage and a career built on lies. Thursday morning, I arrived at Memorial Hospital 2 hours before my presentation. The energy in the building felt different. People who usually greeted me warmly were now looking at me with something else. Sympathy? Respect? Curiosity? Dr. Patricia Henshaw met me in the conference room. Elena, how are you holding up? I'm fine, ready to present. She studied me for a moment. You don't have to do this today. We can reschedule if you need time. I don't need time. I need to show your board why this ER protocol will improve patient outcomes by 40% and reduce liability exposure. That hasn't changed. Patricia smiled. You're something else. Okay, the board is assembling now. They're eager to see what you've developed. The presentation went perfectly. I walked them through the data, the implementation plan, the projected outcomes, fielded questions, addressed concerns. By the time I finished, the board was nodding, impressed. Dr. Volkov, the CEO said, this is exceptional work. We'd like to move forward with implementation immediately. Can you start next week? I can start Monday. As I packed up my materials, Patricia pulled me aside. That was masterful. And I want you to know, the board made the right decision about Dr. Chen. We found irregularities in his billing, undisclosed conflicts of interest, several patient complaints that had been dismissed too easily. You bringing this to our attention was the push we needed to look closer. I'm glad it helped. It did. And Elena? I don't know if anyone has told you this yet, but you're going to be fine. Better than fine. You're brilliant and successful, and you built all of this yourself. Marcus was just along for the ride. I felt something crack in my chest. The first real emotion since Friday night. Thank you. Driving home, I let myself feel it. The hurt, the anger, the betrayal. 9 years. 9 years I'd given to someone who saw me as a useful fool. 9 years of supporting a man who'd been actively mocking me. But also 9 years where I'd been building something real. Something mine. A business that helped people. A reputation that meant something. A life that had value independent of him. By the time I reached my house, the wave of emotion had passed, leaving something calmer in its wake. Acceptance, maybe. Or just exhaustion. Marcus had left a box on the porch. His wedding ring was inside, along with a note. I'm sorry. I know you won't believe me, but I really am. You deserved better. M. I threw the note away and added the ring to the pile of things I'd donate. I didn't need reminders of what had been. I had too much work to do building what would be. 6 weeks later, the divorce was finalized. Marcus didn't contest anything. His attorney, A court-appointed public defender, since he couldn't afford a private one, reviewed the prenup and advised him not to waste time fighting the inevitable. I heard through professional circles that Marcus had moved into a studio apartment in a rough part of town. His practice was struggling. Without hospital privileges or referral networks, he'd lost 70% of his patient base. He'd had to let go of his staff and was working alone, taking whatever patients he could get. Christina had left him the week after the divorce was filed, apparently unwilling to date someone who couldn't afford to take her to nice restaurants anymore. I didn't feel triumphant hearing this. I didn't feel vindicated or satisfied. I just felt done. Memorial Hospital's ER protocol implementation was a massive success. Patient wait times dropped by 42% in the first month. Critical condition catches improved by 37%. The CEO called it transformative. I got 3 new hospital contracts based on that success. Healthcare systems optimization was expanding. I hired 2 new consultants and a business manager. My revenue projections for the next year were at $9 million. One evening, 3 months after the divorce was finalized, I was working late in my office when my doorbell rang. I checked the security camera. Marcus. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won out. He looked different. Tired. Older. Humbled. Elena, I'm sorry to bother you. I just wanted to give you this. He held out an envelope. The final asset distribution. Everything's signed. It's all yours. As it should have been. I took the envelope without opening it. Why did you really come here, Marcus? To say I'm sorry. Really sorry. Not because of what I lost, but because of what I did to you. You were right. I used you. I took advantage of your trust and your success, and I told myself it was okay because you didn't notice. But you did notice. You noticed everything. And you were smart enough to build a case I couldn't fight. I know. I lost everything. My practice is barely surviving. I have no privileges at any hospital. I'm living in a place that barely qualifies as an apartment. But the worst part? I deserve all of it. Everything you did to me, I earned. I studied him. This man I'd once loved, once trusted, once built a life with. Why are you telling me this? Because you should know that you were right. About all of it. I was the problem. Not you. Never you. You were brilliant and successful and loyal, and I convinced myself you were oblivious because it made me feel superior. But you were always 3 steps ahead. I was just too arrogant to see it. Is there a point to this confession? The point is, thank you. Thank you? For not letting me get away with it, for holding me accountable, for showing me that actions have consequences. He smiled sadly. I'm in therapy now, trying to figure out why I sabotage good things. My therapist thinks I have some kind of narcissistic personality disorder. Maybe. I don't know. But I'm trying to be better. Not for you. For myself. I nodded slowly. I hope you succeed, Marcus. I really do. Not because I forgive you or because I want to be friends, but because everyone deserves the chance to become better than their worst moments. That's more grace than I deserve. Probably. But I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it because holding on to anger is exhausting, and I have better things to do with my energy. He turned to leave, then stopped. One more thing. Your work at Memorial? I heard about it. The ER protocol. It's brilliant. Lives are being saved because of what you designed. That's who you are, Elena. Someone who saves lives. I just wish I'd been smart enough to appreciate that while I had you. He walked away. I watched him get into a beat-up Honda, not the BMW I'd been paying for, and drive off. I went back inside, locked the door, and returned to my office. I had a presentation to prepare for Hartford General, a new contract to review for Presbyterian, and a conference call with a hospital in Seattle that wanted to discuss their emergency department redesign. My life was full, busy, meaningful, and entirely mine. 6 months after the divorce, I was featured in Healthcare Innovation magazine. The woman revolutionizing emergency medicine. Dr. Elena Volkov's systemic approach to saving lives. The article talked about my work, my company, my success. It mentioned briefly that I was divorced. It didn't mention Marcus at all. That felt right. This was my story, my success, my life. Marcus had just been a chapter I'd closed. A year after everything happened, I was at a conference in Boston when I ran into Dr. Patricia Henshaw again. We had dinner, talked about healthcare policy, laughed about hospital politics. "You know what I admire most about you?" Patricia said over dessert. "You didn't let what happened to you define you. You took control, handled it with integrity, and moved forward. That takes real strength." "It wasn't strength," I said honestly. "It was survival, and maybe a little bit of spite." She laughed. "Whatever it was, it worked. You're thriving. Your company is growing. Your innovations are saving lives. That's the best revenge. Living well." Later that night, in my hotel room, I opened my laptop and looked at my calendar. 2 hospital presentations next week, a board meeting, 3 consulting contracts to finalize, a speaking engagement at a medical conference. My life was exactly what I'd built it to be. Successful, meaningful. Mine. Marcus had called me too dumb to notice his affair, but I'd noticed everything that mattered. I'd noticed that I was capable, strong, successful without him, and in the end, that awareness had set me free. I closed my laptop and looked out at the Boston skyline. Tomorrow, I'd present my latest research. Next week, I'd sign contracts worth millions. Next month, I'd speak at a conference about innovation in emergency medicine. This was my life now. Not the life Marcus had tried to reduce me to. Not the oblivious data nerd he'd described to his mistress. But the life I'd built through years of work, intelligence, and refusing to accept less than I deserved. And it was extraordinary. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.